All right, now we're live. We're gonna do a little audio test here. Can you hear me? Well, I know you guys can, you're downstairs. Okay, I hear myself on the laptop in the other room. All right, now we're live, for real, for real. Okay, we're just adjusting some camera settings, but thank you for your patience. I don't know, I'm gonna blame it on I did the tech setup today. So clearly there's some things to learn, but thanks for joining. Glad you're here. Got the chat open. This is a live Q&A. Ask me anything about nutrition, about myself, anything goes. And we put this out on social media, so I have a few questions that were submitted. And if you ever have nutrition questions, shoot me an email. It's questions@thrivenutritionrdn.com. So let me just double check that the chat is open. Thank you for letting me know that you can hear me. Everything looks open and on, so we will get going. And really quick, last Sunday I did a live and answered some questions. We talked about turmeric and inflammation and nuts and kind of shared some stuff just about myself. So that was fun, and that was before my meal prep class that I was teaching last Sunday. I'm also teaching one today, starting at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So I am prepping for that, and I just want to share. I've got all my things out over here. I want to share the recipes that we're making today in the meal prep class. So it's kind of like healthy comfort food. We're going to do peanut butter cup overnight oats. We're doing a Tuscan tomato, tortellini, and white bean soup that has some spinach in it. So good. Then we're making some air fryer everything bagel bites to dip in the soup. And this is all about meal prep, setting yourself up for success for the week. Along with those two things, we are making a Mediterranean white bean tuna salad. And because dessert's always fun and you need a little something to go with all that, we are making a chickpea cookie dough dip. So those are kind of popular on the internet. I love to use chickpeas, they're beans and packed with fiber and all this stuff. That is a fun recipe that we're gonna do at the end of our meal prep session. So I'm prepping for all that, and let me pull these out. I am making for dinner for my family tonight, we're making beet pizza dough, because on my website, I need a better picture of my pink beet pizza dough. So I'm gonna make it for dinner for tonight, and the first step in that is roasting some beets. So while we're chatting about nutrition, I'm gonna be peeling these and trying not to get beet juice all over my hands. I've got a sheet tray, I'm gonna be roasting. So doing double duty here. So send me your questions, and while you think those up, I'm gonna pull up the questions at Thrive Nutrition RDN email and answer some that were sent in prior to us going live. So let's see. Okay. Question 1. Okay, I just signed up with a personal trainer to start getting in shape, and they have me on a macro counting system to lose weight. I know personal trainers always put their clients on a weight loss system, but I'm considering reaching out to a dietitian instead. Love that. I'm just not sure if the extra cost would be worth it or not. Can you explain why I might want to go with a dietitian for my nutrition and just use a personal trainer for my exercise? Love that. Well, I love that you're like thinking of all these things. Personal trainers and dietitians, we each have our expertise, but there's definitely overlap. I can tell you, people ask me about workout advice, and I give some general advice, and personal trainers that I know and love and am friends with do the same thing in terms of nutrition. You can give general advice, but you certainly can't give specifics. So if you're really looking to hit a specific nutrition goal, whether that's weight loss, whether you are training for a triathlon or really trying to build muscle, I would absolutely encourage you to find a registered dietitian in your area. Most RDs anymore can do things virtually. That's what I do. So I would look for a dietitian that will fit your specific needs. So depending on what that is, whether it's weight loss or muscle gain or if you're an endurance athlete in training in that way, find someone who's going to help you, because nutrition is one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle. So that was a great question. Next. Okay, next question. I'm trying to get healthier and cut back on my meat intake, but I'm struggling to find, I have been watering all day. I'm struggling to find good alternatives for protein. I know people always recommend beans as a good plant alternative, but I just absolutely hate them. Not the first time I've heard that. Are there any other options for plant proteins besides beans? Are there any strategies to learn to like beans? Well, I love to talk about beans, and there are definitely strategies. So first of all, plants do have protein. I think that's one of those like myths that's out there, that if you're vegetarian or vegan and you just eat plants, you don't get any protein. Not true. There's protein in plants for sure. Beans are a great source, so that's where we kind of lean toward beans as one of the first recommendations, but I'll get to liking beans in a second. The other plant-based sources of protein can be a variety of things. Tofu is a good one, and if it's an intimidating ingredient, I say buy some tofu. I really like the super firm. I have some in my fridge right now. Hold on, I'll show you. Super firm is a great starter. Okay, super firm tofu, a great starter tofu because it is really firm. It doesn't have that mushy texture that you might think of with tofu. It's high in protein. So a fifth of this block has 14 grams of protein. So this is nice and high in protein. I really like to get it crispy, so I'll put it in the air fryer. You can also get it crispy in the oven. Has great texture. It is a blank canvas for flavors, so it lends itself to all sorts of things, not just Asian dishes, but I've used it in tofu meatballs. I've used it in Italian dishes, like anything under the sun. But super firm is really great, and you don't have to waste that extra time. Well, not waste. You don't have to spend that extra time pressing it and getting all the water out. It's a great starter tofu, but also it's my go-to because it's super easy. So tofu is great. Nut butters are great. They are high in protein. But then let's get back to the beans. Oh wait, kind of bridging that gap. Edamame is a great high protein addition, plant source addition to meals. It's great as a snack as well. Now to the beans. Lots of people are anti-beans, whether it's you grew up and didn't like the way your mom cooked beans, or had them in a restaurant one time that wasn't very good, or just haven't really had beans very much and you're just sort of skeptical. I encourage you to try them. You don't have to buy dry beans and do an overnight soak and all that. They are delicious that way. But if you're just starting out with beans, buy some canned beans, low or no sodium if you can find it. Always drain and rinse your beans to reduce any extra sodium that's on there. And then, sorry, I'm getting my foil for my lovely beet, and I'm gonna peel it. And then if you don't like beans, try them in dishes. So instead of just like a side of beans, mix beans into different things. So one of my go-tos is turkey tacos with black beans added. My youngest one doesn't love beans a lot, but he'll try them when they're mixed in with things. I also really love lentils. They're high in protein, they're higher in iron, and they can cook down a lot. So if you want something where you're not really getting a super bean type texture, lentils are a great source of protein. But also, you'll find a lot of recipes on my website where beans are mixed into other things. So I've got chickpeas in pasta. I have chickpeas in chickpea blondies, which is a little dessert, but we're getting fiber in there, we're getting extra protein, and it doesn't taste like chickpeas. So there's some suggestions for you. Hope that helps. And everyone who's watching, if you have a question, drop it into chat. I'm gonna pop back to the questions that were sent before we started. Okay, movie night popcorn. Oh, I love popcorn. Okay, my family and I love to watch movies together. We always buy Orville Redenbacher's movie theater popcorn to have during our movie nights. My wife and I are trying to get a bit healthier and lose some weight this year. And we're going through our snacks in the pantry. We were wondering if this was an acceptable snack to have each week. It seems like it has a lot of calories for popcorn. We don't want to give it up if we don't have to. Okay, so they actually sent a nutrition label. So just hearing that it is the movie theater popcorn, it's probably loaded with fat. I mean, the movie theater popcorn is good, greasy. If it's a once in a while thing, like if you go to the movies every, I don't know, once a quarter, and you get a not massive thing of popcorn, but you get a little medium-sized popcorn, and that's your little thing that you enjoy, that's fine. But if you're having this all the time, let's look at this ingredient label. Let's see. Okay, here's the ingredients. Whole grain popcorn, excellent. It came in giant. And then palm oil, salt, butter, color added, annatto, turmeric, paprika, natural flavor, and then mixed tocopherols. So you're gonna see like vitamin E added to things because it's a preservative. It is a vitamin, but it's used for preservation in all kinds of foods. So the ingredients don't look terrible. Whole grain popcorn, palm oil, not our best, salt, butter, and then color added. Turmeric gives it that yellow color, paprika, a little bit of the red. Natural flavor is such a misnomer. Natural flavor isn't actually natural. It's derived from the natural ingredient and then made in a lab. So I really dislike that they call it natural flavor. But then getting back to, let me pop back to the other email, looking at the serving size. There's about 2.5 servings per bag, but I'm gonna guess that if you're making this for a movie night, you know, maybe you're sharing with your spouse or a family, like you're eating the whole bag. 30 servings per container, okay. That's why nutrition labels can be absolutely confusing. So there's no sugar in here, great, but there is, let's see, 10 grams of fat per serving, but you're probably having more, let's see, 5 cups popped. Servings per container, 30. So you're definitely having more than just the one serving that they're listing. So think about that with any food. If it says that the serving size is half a cup, like for cereals, a lot of times it'll be like 2/3 cup, but do you really have 2/3 cup of cereal, or are you having more like a cup and a half of cereal? So that can be confusing. We really need serving sizes on packages to be accurate to what people really eat, instead of kind of food companies trying to market and make it look good for them on the shelf. So I would say this popcorn would be a once in a while treat, probably not a weekly thing. You know, microwave popcorn, some people will say there's some of these additives added into it. There's not other things listed in this particular one. Others have, honestly, crummier ingredients, but I would encourage you to just buy the kernels, which is what I do. And you just pop it on the stove. And my mom taught me this. That's one of the things that Gigi makes when she visits, but I make it myself, and then I like to put nutritional yeast on top. It gives it this umami flavor, and me and all my boys like it. My youngest in particular really like it. Oh, but you can also drizzle some olive oil on it. You could drizzle your own butter, but we know what the ingredients are then. So it's literally whole grain corn, and you're popping it, and then whatever oil you're gonna use, and maybe a little salt, some other seasonings. I've seen everything bagel popcorn. There's all kinds of recipes out there. You could spice it up however you like it. But this over the stove with a pot is very simple. Not quite as easy as microwave popcorn, but this way you control the ingredients. Okay, comment, let's see. My kids love deli meat and pepperoni for lunches. What's a better alternative? Such a great question, because deli meats, pepperonis, any like processed meats, we continue to see research that they are linked to not great health outcomes. So the first thing I would say is, if you really love them, and like my kids really like pepperoni on a pizza, we don't have it every week. We don't have it all the time. So here and there, sure, we want to enjoy the things that we like, but alternatives. Alternatives, it depends on what kind of meat they like. So my technically oldest twin, his sandwich for lunch at school, he wants deli turkey meat, mayo, mustard, and sun-dried tomatoes and cheese. He's gotten very fancy with his choices, but he really likes the turkey deli meat. So you could buy a turkey breast, roast it yourself, slice it up, which might sound like work, but that's a nice alternative. The same could be done for chicken breasts. And the way you season it is what's going to make it interesting, because again, like tofu, chicken breast are a blank canvas. Pepperoni, there's not really much in the way of alternatives. You can get turkey pepperoni, which I do buy, actually usually because it's a little less greasy, so it's less fat. So I like that as an alternative. But we just bought some pepperoni to go with our beet pizza dough for tonight, and they couldn't find turkey pepperoni. So I bought the regular, and just by feeling it, I can tell that it's higher in fat and higher in grease. So you can buy the lighter options. Depending on the deli meat, there's definitely other options available. And then other things like processed meats, so our bacons, our sausages, look for options that are nitrate-free or nitrite-free if you can find them. Otherwise, just have them in moderation. That's my biggest tip. Okay. Other questions? Otherwise, I will go back. And if you have a follow-up question or more questions, just pop them into chat. Or you have a question for me. I think that came up last time. I'll answer those as well while I peel my beet. And people tend to be kind of scared of beets. They have a very earthy flavor. So if you're new to beets, I highly recommend making this beet pizza dough. And on my website, we just did a whole bunch of updates yesterday. Now we have the rating system fixed. So I would love it if you've made one of my recipes, pop over to thrivenutritionrdn.com and leave a review. That definitely helps out because I'm really wanting to share healthful, nourishing, but also really delicious recipes. Because so many times we think that healthy food is bland or boring, and it doesn't have to be. So I'm gonna peel this and jump to another question. This one popped up on social media, and it is about food additives. And there's a clip of RFK talking about some food additives, one in particular saying that he wanted to get rid of riboflavin or work on riboflavin. So these are things that we read on the back of nutrition labels. Oh, thanks. So she said, I was pleasantly surprised on how good the beet pizza dough is. I think everyone should try it. Thank you. Yes, it does not taste beet-y. Little sidebar, I made this into little beet pizzettes, which is mini versions of pizza dough. For my local farmer's market here, I do cooking demos, and we topped it with, so everything is fresh from their market, and I do these demos to encourage people to buy fresh produce from the market and teach them how to essentially cook with it. And we made beet pizzettes with, I'm trying to remember exactly, broccoli pesto, some sliced sugar snap peas, and then turmeric pickled onions on top. And it was this just delicious little bite of food. And that was one of my most popular, but I love doing that. Okay, so I'm gonna cut off my nubbin here. I'm gonna cut off the top, and you can actually eat these greens if you want. They are a more bitter green, but you can keep them and eat them. So I'm gonna chop this down. Okay, so back to riboflavin, and this is what beets do to you, but it doesn't last forever. Riboflavin is actually vitamin B2. So if you see that, you'll see it on cereals a lot. Grab a knife. You will see it in cereals because, weird hair happening. We fortify our cereals with some of these vitamins that Americans tend to be deficient in. Riboflavin is not one we are deficient in anymore, but that's why it is fortified in there. And what does it do? Riboflavin is part of all sorts of things related to cell metabolism and our energy metabolism. So it is super important, but it's also a B vitamin, so it's water soluble, so you don't really have to worry about having too much, but it's an essential, not essential, it's a nutrient that we want to have. So it's not one that should be on the chopping block for taking out of our foods. So that was one that came up on social media. And there's other things that are added to our foods that I get questions about. So I will go to those two and jump back to my questions email. Okay, the other one is MSG. So MSG is monosodium glutamate. A few years, maybe like 10 years ago, it was really in the news. There were some studies over essentially discussing like, is this good for us, not good for us? You will find it in lots of Asian dishes. You will find it as an additive. It gives a salty sort of umami flavor to, I mean, it's in crackers and all kinds of things. So a couple things about MSG. People who have migraines, it can be a trigger for migraines. So that's something to keep in mind. But other people, it's just fine, and it's a umami, salty ingredient that just kind of is a flavor enhancer. The studies from years ago aren't quite as accurate as they are today. Just getting my olive oil, my salt and pepper. So if you're worried about MSG and you have some migraines, that's something that you might want to consider checking labels for it and keeping out of your rotation. If it doesn't bother you, it is not quite the demon ingredient that it was once considered. So it's okay here and there. Okay, so I should hold this up because the camera can't quite see. Okay, so to make beet pizza dough, you're gonna roast your beet. I like to put it with a little olive oil, salt and pepper, put it in a little case here on a foil lined sheet, right? I'm gonna roast it at 400 for 30-ish minutes, but the recipe is on my website if you're interested. So I'm gonna pop my oven on while we keep chatting. So other questions, let's see. And we have like 15 more minutes on our chat here. Okay, going back to the questions email. Okay, another question about protein. So the macronutrients I get questions about all the time. How many carbs should I eat? How much protein should I eat? Are there good fats and bad fats? Those are things that I've really tried to address on this YouTube channel. So I did a thing about carb myths. I recently, a month ago, did a video on protein, but I'll touch on kind of the highlights on that now. And then I did one on fats as well. So going back to protein, actually, I'm gonna just roast all these up. See, while we're talking, I'm meal prepping before the meal prep class. Talking about protein. Protein is always on social media. You're gonna see people say that you should have 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That frankly is quite high. But protein needs, just like all the macronutrients, should be individualized to you. My protein needs are different from my husband's. They're different from my friends, my sisters, my cousins, because our bodies are different, our ages are different. We have different health goals. So if you're trying to lose weight, your protein needs are going to be different from if you're trying to, if you're an endurance runner or if you're trying to build muscle. But in general, there's the RDA for protein, which is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So everything would generally be in kilograms because that's just how we do it in nutrition sciences. Per kilogram of body weight, the 0.8 is the RDA, which is the recommended daily allowance, but that is the literal minimum to avoid protein deficiency. That does not mean that that is going to meet your needs. So let's talk about specific needs. People who are older, 65 and up, need more. We need more protein because as we age, for every decade that we get older, after 30, we can lose about 8% of our muscle mass. So how do we mitigate that? We weight train. That's really big. But then also making sure that we eat enough, because sarcopenia, which is progressive muscle loss with aging, that's the term for it. Sarcopenia is more common than you might think. So I worked in long-term care and behavioral health before I started my private practice. And I saw firsthand just how often that would happen to people, and especially when you're, gosh, past 75 and maybe in not so great health. So that's why we want to continue to weight train and eat enough protein. Now, just simply eating protein does not build muscles. That's another misnomer that I'm always happy to debunk. You have to do some resistance training. It doesn't mean that you have to go to the gym 6 days a week and go crazy, but you can do things at home. You can do things to preserve your muscle mass, like some good old simple push-ups, like some, in one of my recent videos, I was talking about just doing some air squats, whether it's when you are brushing your teeth or when you're in the kitchen between tasks. Maybe you've got something on the stove and something in the oven and you have just a minute. That's when you can drop and do some air squats. So our quads are these huge muscles that we want to keep strong, particularly as we age, because we want flexibility. We want to be able to get up and down from the floor, all those things that maybe you don't think about, but I just turned 40, so some of those things are on my mind. For me, I like to set these little small goals, and I talk about that a lot in my private practice, is air squats during today's meal prep. Love it. We're gonna do that. I'm gonna have, and we'll have to take a picture of it. I'm gonna have everybody doing some air squats today during meal prep. Okay. Thank you for the comment. What was I just saying? Oh, small changes. And look at the beats on my hands, but a couple hand washings and I'll be gone. All about small changes. So I just turned 40, and when I was, I'm gonna ask Devin, he's over here. What was it? When I was 37 or 38, I did like 38 pull-ups a day for 38 days or something. Anyway, this year I'm doing 40 push-ups a day for 40 days in a row. And then I'll decide maybe it'll turn to squats or something. But it's just in addition to other things I'm doing. And when it's something that is manageable, like 40 a day and not 400 for me anyway, it's easy to get done. And I had my kids make a little chart, and I'm on day, I think today's day 13, that I've done it. And I can tell you that my arms are getting stronger, because I don't want flabby arms when I get older. I don't know, that's one random thing that's been on my mind. So that's one little thing to work on. So what small goal could you, okay, I see a comment. If I get down, who's gonna pick me up? That's why you need to be doing some air squats. Go ahead and stand up and do them with me here in a second. It's super important. Flexibility as we age is just, we just lose it. But we're so sedentary that it becomes very common. So I would highly encourage you to work on it in any way that you can, whether it's air squats or whether it's literally, so gosh, think back to my long-term care or short-term rehab time. I mean, occupational therapists are having people just practice getting up and out of a chair. So if you can't quite do an air squat, you can practice having a chair. See, this goes back to the dietitian talking about physical fitness. I can talk about it a little bit, but having a chair and just practice getting up out of it. That's one thing you can do. Do I need to drink electrolytes daily? Great question. Electrolytes, another hot topic, electrolytes. So when do we need electrolytes? If you think about those drinks, Gatorade is the first thing that pops in my mind, but now there are so many out there. They were created, here's a little Gatorade history for you because I kind of think it's fun. They're called Gatorade because they were created for the University of Florida. I always get it confused as University of Florida Gators, or anyway, it's the Gators team. It was created for them because back in, I want to say the 60s, around that time, don't quote me on that, the football players were playing in major heat of Florida, major humidity, and they were practicing, and some of them were passing out afterwards. And so the team there developed Gatorade, which has a ton of sodium added to it and other electrolytes, because the team was essentially sweating out so much, their output was so much, and they were depleting all their electrolytes, and that's why they were passing out. So this drink was created for people who were working out super, super hard, sweating a lot, and needed to replenish their electrolytes. So, do we need to drink electrolytes daily? No, but there's an asterisk there. It depends. We need electrolytes, but we get them through our food. So we get, I've got my salt dish here. We get sodium through our food. We're getting potassium through our food. But if you exercise at a very high intensity, or if you're doing something where you are sweating a lot, then an electrolyte drink is something to consider. If not, you likely don't need it. So tune into what's going on with you. If you just ran, I don't know, half marathon and it was 90 degrees out and you were in Florida, then yeah, you could definitely have a Powerade, or I can't even think of any of the new names for these things. Yes, and you should refuel during the marathon or half marathon and all those things. But if you went for a walk and then did some yoga, you don't need an electrolyte drink, most likely, because we say those drinks are for when you are sweating a lot or you're sick. That's another time that we would need them. So if you're sick, for example, we all had the flu, 3 weeks ago, and I got some Gatorade for my kids because they didn't want to eat, they hardly wanted to drink, and so we didn't want to get into a dehydration status for them. You know, as an adult, you can kind of have a little headspace in there and make sure that you're getting some water or some food in, some toast, but my kids were we had to have some Gatorade because they needed it to stay hydrated. Otherwise, we don't really need it. So for kids, if they are playing football out in the summer and the heat and they're out there for an hour or more, electrolyte drink could be beneficial. But if you are doing something low impact, you're not really sweating, you likely don't need it. So there's that question. Okay. Let me go back to the questions email. And I have my beets prepped, so I'll have to share a picture of the beet pizza dough later. It's so good. Okay, so one more question about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are always on the chopping block. So the question is, do I need to cut out carbs for weight loss? And I'm gonna say no, but everything seems to have an asterisk today, so we're gonna put an asterisk there. If you do cut carbs, so if you go on keto, if you go on South Beach, if you go on Atkins, you are going to lose weight in the first 2 weeks for sure, 2 to 3 weeks. That is because carbohydrates like those that are found in anything from bread to oatmeal to sweet potatoes, carbohydrates are stored in our body with water. So when we cut out carbs, let's say you go keto and you're just eating higher fat and you're eating a lot of chicken breasts and you've cut carbohydrates out. Well, first our body's going to use the stored carbohydrates that we have, and then that's going to be excreted. So the extra water is excreted, and so we are literally losing water weight when we go on these no to very, very low carbohydrate diets. The thing that's crummy is when you go back to eating carbohydrates. So say you lost 10 pounds in the first 2 weeks, then you don't want to eat that extreme anymore, and you go back to eating carbohydrates. Well, once we eat carbohydrates again, we're going to store a little bit of water with it, and so then we're holding a little bit of that water weight back, and so we gain a little bit of weight back, and then that can be a mental bummer. And so I always say, carbohydrate-wise, we want to eat quality carbs. Stay away from ultra-processed, junky stuff. But to be fair, I have some of that in my pantry right now because I have kids, so they like crackers and snacks like that. But we also incorporate a whole lot of fresh fruit and fresh veggies and homemade energy bites with dates and those sorts of things. So you have to find a balance that works for you and for your family. But quality carbs like a sweet potato, like whole grain pastas, brown rice, whole wheat sourdough bread. Okay. And I think I've talked about how we make our own sourdough, but this is the latest loaf right here. So all those things can be part of a healthful diet. You don't have to cut carbohydrates for the sake of some short-term or even long-term weight loss goal because it's not sustainable. So Okay, I just see the no angel. I just saw no angel wings, so it's funny. Think about this. Before you start any diet, just have this question in your mind. Is this the way I want to eat for the rest of my life? And I ask this question of my clients pretty frequently. And if the answer is no, then why would you do that in the first place? Because research and just history tells us that when we go on a diet and we go off of it, most of the time, I just pulled this stat for a video, so I can't remember exactly, but it's like 2/3 of people gain, look at my beat hands, gain the weight back within a few months, and then another percentage of people gain that weight back plus more. So that's why what I do with clients and what I really am trying to share with everyone out there is that we don't need to go on a diet, but just incorporating healthful foods in a way that feels good and feels positive is the way to make changes that actually last, instead of a short-term extreme diet for some short-term weight goal that may end up backfiring in the long run. Okay, beats are going in. Any last questions before we sign off? Okay, and that's gonna roast for a few minutes. Let me just check our questions email. Oh, I should probably refresh. You can ask me a question too. So I like doing these lives. I did the setup for the tech side, so thank you for your patience. Devin's trying to teach me, and it's, a little bit difficult, but we're considering doing lives once a quarter or maybe once a month, just so we can have this sort of dialogue with the audience out there and find out what are the nutrition questions that you have? What are the things that are tripping you up nutrition wise? What questions do you have with all the nutrition BS that's out there, between influencers in a tiny sports bra and a literal thong that I saw this week talking about what she ate in a day, which was so unrealistic, a bagel with bacon and all this other stuff that was just nonsense. Seeing crap like that, to debunking other myths, to people saying that we shouldn't have riboflavin in our food, all those things are what I'm trying to share the evidence-based facts and truth about. So if you have questions, okay, one question for me. What's your favorite unhealthy food? Okay, I know. I'll tell you what it is now and what it used to be. Now it is kettle cooked chips, just like the salted, no extra flavor kind. And I probably get them from the store once every 6 months or once a quarter maybe. I love the salty, and I'll tell you, I grew up eating Grandma Utz chips. I think that's a very East Coast, Maryland, Pennsylvania thing. But now I just get the Cape Cod kettle chips, and I love them, and have them, then that craving is satisfied, and then I'm good for another 3-4 months. Used to be ice cream was my go-to, but that was pre-kids. After I had kids, I went from being a sweets person to a salty person, which is weird. But ice cream used to be my jam, Ben & Jerry's, half-baked, where it's cookie dough and brownies mixed in, and it's absolutely delicious. But the best part is I wouldn't buy it at the grocery store. I would say, we would make a special trip out to go get the pint just from the gas station. So that would be those are my little unhealthy things that I like to have here and there. That was a fun question. Okay. Well, it is 10:53 here. We have 2 more minutes. Now my oven is hot enough. I'm going to continue setting up for my meal prep class, because the first thing we're going to be doing is chopping and prepping for our Tuscan tomato soup, which is super, super yummy. And if your weather is in the in-between, like it is here in Colorado, it's going to be a little bit warmer here today, but there's snow on the ground. Still trying to adjust to the weather here. And especially apparently March is the wildest weather here. Wind, snow, but today's going to be in the 50s, so we're just rolling with it. But it's a good day to have soup, so we're prepping that. And then tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. So if anyone is looking for fun St. Patrick's Day recipes, I have a healthier, lightened up mashed potato recipe on my website. And something that I've done with my kids over the last several years is they would pick a country and I would kind of research what the food is around or in that country, and we would make things based on that. And then Devin would find little videos about the country so we could learn about it. And it's been super fun. So we did Ireland, I don't know, several weeks ago, but I made the mashed potatoes where they have some greens mixed in, and it's super, super yummy. So anyone else is celebrating, that's kind of the extent of our St. Patrick's Day. I don't do corned beef because I don't like it, but I could make it for my kids because they would probably like it. Okay, any other questions before we're off? Thanks so much for joining today. Green beer. I think you just add food coloring to it, right? That's always popular. When I lived in New York, when I went to college the first time, I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology. They always had a St. Patrick's Day parade, which was super fun. So green beer was pretty popular then. Green beer. And then here's a fun, I think we did this a couple years ago on social media. Ooh, any St. Patrick's Day staples in your home? Not really, but I am part Irish, so I need to lean into this a little bit. I have been making a shepherd's pie recipe, so a vegetarian one for me and then a ground turkey one for Devin and the boys. That's really good, and I'll have to share that recipe soon. So my vegetarian one was with mushrooms. It was really, really, really good. Once I and a lot of times when I cook and it's just for the family, I'm not measuring. What do they say, measure with your heart. I'm just putting things together because I'm so used to cooking in a way, and I put them in together in a way that I taste as I go and sounds good. But that would be one to share. I love that one. But another fun one, if you have kids, and we did this a couple years ago on social media, and I'll have to dig that picture up, but made chocolate chip cookies or chickpea blondies with sun butter. And what sun butter is made from sunflower seeds, and what's cool about it is you make them and they look like normal cookies, or they look like normal chickpea blondies, but the next day or in a few hours, they will look green on the inside. And that's because that's how the sun butter reacts with the air. And it's super cool. So the outside of the cookie will look like your normal cookie, or chickpea blondies will look normal, but then the inside gets a green tinge to it. And it's very festive for St. Patrick's Day. Maybe I'll make that tomorrow. So that's it. What are your guys' staples? Anybody want to share in the comments? Is it corned beef? Potatoes is a huge one, or just corned beef and cabbage. I really like cabbage, but I don't cook it down. I like to put cabbage in a slaw with a really nice light vinaigrette. And I just made one last week and everybody really liked it. So another recipe to share. Great question. Okay, corned beef and cabbage, crock pot style, nice. Love a crock pot recipe. Nice and easy. That's what we need, especially working moms and those sorts of things. Okay. My watch is telling me that it is time for my meal prep class, so we're jumping to that. Everyone enjoy your St. Patrick's Day, your corned beef and cabbage. Now, Irma, you have me thinking that I should get that because I think the kids would like it. And it's tomorrow, so I'll have to go to the store. But we're about to meal prep the healthy comfort foods. Thanks for joining this live. If you have more questions, you can always email questions@thrivenutritionrdn.com or drop to me in the comments of a video or comments on social media. And if you like this and want me to do more of them, let me know. We're thinking about doing them once a month or once a quarter. So thanks everybody for joining, and see you again soon.